I've now gone a year without alcohol, a year and 11 days to be exact. It's been good. So this is just going to be kind of an update video. My last video on the topic I did after 100 days, and that video has done quite well. And it started out slow, but after a little while, it kind of found its audience, and nobody else has the experience of being notified every time someone comments on that video. But for me, every day, sometimes multiple times a day, people share how quitting drinking has really turned their lives around and how much better their lives are. And that is a good reminder for me all the time. It's a constant reminder. And it's a constant reminder too that whatever good energy I put out in the world, you know, has been returned to me many times over by all the people who've watched that and who've shared their own stories. So I wanted to thank everyone who wrote those comments and who shared their stories. And I want to recommend that everyone go and read those comments, because there's a lot of negativity in the world, but that comment section has been one that's been really positive and has really shown just how something simple like giving up alcohol, which is maybe not simple, maybe not easy, but ultimately I think should be something simple, how that really has changed so many lives. And also the real struggles that people have, of course, with alcohol, which we all know. I mean, we've all met people that have had their lives ruined by alcohol. We might be those people. And to see the positive of that people can turn their lives around and take back control of their life is really good to see. I could see how if a comment section turned extremely negative, you could also deal with a really negative spiral in your life. But I'm happy to have this constant stream of positive energy. So I appreciate that. So if you haven't seen that first video, that really goes over kind of my story and how I got here, and my own struggles with alcohol, which certainly weren't as severe as many people's, and I'm very grateful for that. I, was maybe borderline for a lot of people. I knew I drank too much, that it wasn't healthy, but it wasn't crippling my life either. And I really do have a lot of empathy for people who have had much more serious struggles, because, I had plenty of a taste of that. Over more than a decade, I had plenty of experiences of bad hangovers, of throwing up, of, getting sick or doing things that I later regretted. And for me, it was all pretty mild, but for people who struggle with something much worse than that, I empathize a lot, because just whatever I went through was more than enough. And it can really, do a whole lot worse in so many people's lives. I mean, you could, kill someone with your car and go to jail. I never had anything like that happen to me, thank goodness. But still, I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for everyone who struggles with all kinds of addiction. And I know what that's like. I don't claim to know what it's like to be in the deepest depths of despair with that, but the whole path leading down to it is not pleasant either. So I've had a really great year since giving up drinking. It's been my most successful year here on YouTube, with a couple of videos that did really well. And this is not my full-time job. This doesn't make me very much money at all, but it's still been my best year in terms of views, in terms of what little ad revenue I get. That's always good to see, because I put a lot of work into it, and I'm glad that it does well. And again, that first video on quitting drinking has been, an important one for me, not maybe from the most creative standpoint, but from an emotional level, and just being part of a conversation that is a personal one. I usually talk about music here, and obviously music affects people's lives deeply too, but you don't get the same reaction talking about a piece of gear that you do talking about something a little more real. I've been doing well career-wise. I started a new job last year in February 2023, and I like the company. I like my coworkers, so that's been fun. As a piano tuner, my life is often lonely and working with pianos, and so working with other lonely, crazy piano technicians is mostly good. I like them. I've done a lot of thinking about addiction more broadly, and I recommend the book Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lembke. That's an interesting read and tells the stories of a lot of different people and their own struggles with addiction and how she was able to help them as a psychologist to overcome those things. People suffer from all kinds of addiction, and it's certainly not just drugs. And it's certainly not just illegal drugs or hard drugs. There's prescription drugs, painkillers that people are given by doctors, and other things like video games or even books is something that she struggled with, which she admits is kind of a silly one, but got kind of hooked on romance novels, and so has her own personal story of addiction, as much as it may seem inconsequential compared to someone who's hooked on opiates or something. She also goes into the neuroscience and the psychology of addiction in a pretty layman-friendly way. I recommended last time Dr. Andrew Huberman and his show, and he does a great job as well of explaining neuroscience and psychology to just people like me who don't have a background in that. One of the key concepts in that book that I think about a lot now is the pleasure and pain balance that goes on with our brain with dopamine. So when we take any kind of drug or have some experience that releases a lot of dopamine into the brain, we can get hooked on that even if it's not a addictive substance. It can be addictive because it triggers the release of dopamine. And ultimately, all drugs or all pleasurable activities are stimulating the release of dopamine. So when you think about it, in a sense, all drugs are the same. All addictions are the same in terms of what they do in the brain. They release dopamine, and they just have stronger or weaker effects. And it doesn't have to be a drug at all. It could be video games. It could be watching TV. It could be any number of things. The catch is our brain is always trying to reestablish equilibrium. So when we tip the balance towards pleasure, and the harder we tip the balance towards pleasure, the harder the opposite will happen later. So the higher the high, the worse the come down. Something to think about when it comes to addiction, because yes, you may really enjoy something. You may enjoy a particular drug, drink, pleasurable activities, but those things not only enslave you as far as being trapped in this cycle of addiction, but the more you get high, the worse you'll feel later. As you develop tolerance towards anything, you are hitting that scale harder and harder and asking for a worse time later. So if you try to think about not giving up pleasure, but giving up the extremes so that you can have a more normal happiness all the time. Yeah, maybe you're giving up the extreme heights to which you could achieve with a drug or alcohol or anything. But the balance, the general well-being all the time is worth it. Giving up drinking so that you don't have to have a hangover later is worth it. That is a very clear cause and effect situation. And the more you drink, the worse the hangover is going to be. It's easy to understand. But in fact, all addictions have that going on in the brain, just not quite the same in the body. And speaking of the body, health-wise, I've felt a lot better. Yeah, my sleep is certainly a lot better. I've lost about 15 pounds without really trying. In fact, I probably am less careful with my diet because I have a lot of extra calories that I'm not taking in due to alcohol. And I haven't really tried to diet. And I think I said in the last video that that's a future goal, and it's still a future goal. I just haven't really got around to it. I've been busy with work and I haven't been focused on that. So I'm getting to a point where I'm ready to embark on a more ascetic life, I think. I hope. I used to suffer a lot from stomach pain, and that's all been gone thanks to not destroying my stomach lining with alcohol. And I kind of knew that that was the cause. In fact, I was pretty sure of it, but I wasn't sure that giving up drinking would cure that. And it essentially immediately did. In fact, I abuse my stomach every day with a lot of coffee. I do drink too much coffee. That's the one substance that I'm still addicted to, and I don't really have any intentions of giving up caffeine, though I probably should cut back from 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day down to a little more reasonable level. But I do love coffee, and so I'm okay with that. I understand the risks. It doesn't bother my stomach, thankfully. Again, my stomach is strong and healthy now that I am not drinking. So that doesn't bother me, and I have a pretty high caffeine tolerance, so I can still manage to sleep and be tired all the time. In fact, I think I'm tired all the time because I drink too much coffee, and the rebound effect of doing that is that you end up being tired. But my sleep is definitely better. That's still always kind of a work in progress. I feel like I've always been bad about keeping a normal sleep schedule. It's a little easier with work, but in my line of work, my schedule's still not really regular every day. So, and that's partly my own fault of just not always going to bed at the same time, always getting up at the same time. But it is what it is. I've been paying a lot more attention to sleep and been trying actively to, get more sleep and to get better sleep. And certainly doing less drugs helps with sleep. Alcohol might help you to sleep faster, but it also gives you worse sleep. And same with marijuana. It helps you to sleep faster, decreases REM sleep, which then leads to other problems. In the case of marijuana, there's an increased risk of psychosis for especially individuals that have that in their family, which thankfully I don't, but there is an increased risk of psychosis. And when you combine that with less REM sleep, that also leads to an increased risk for psychosis. So that's bad. Less sleep also can lead to more depression, which is another thing that I feel like I haven't really had much of a struggle with this year. I think I've always been somewhat prone to, maybe not clinical depression. I don't really know. Never been diagnosed with anything like that, but we all get sad, and I certainly go through periods of melancholy and being down, sometimes without any real cause. It's not necessarily sadness. I just feel like I don't have energy. I don't have motivation. I just don't feel upbeat about life. I feel like it's, a suffering and struggle. And, I still feel that way. Plenty of times I try to not, but I often do. And I feel like that's definitely been a lot less. Certainly being hungover was depressing, especially because you get bad sleep the night before. If you've been drinking and then you feel sick, you're sick to your stomach, you got this brain fog, you're tired, you're going to be depressed. I guarantee it. You're going to be depressed. And the more you do that, the more generally depressing your life gets. So when you don't do that, you get better sleep, you feel more rested, you're more productive, you're doing things that you want to do, you're proud of what you're doing, you're moving up in the world, then, that's a good thing, and you're going to feel better. I guarantee it. Whatever depression you may struggle with is going to be lessened if you're not making it worse via alcohol and marijuana. I guess it's been about 4 or 5 months since I gave up nicotine, quit vaping. I quit smoking over a decade ago. I just switched to vaping because it was healthier, and can debate the health consequences. I think we all know that smoking is very dangerous, and while vaping is not good for you, I think it's certainly a lot less harmful. I never had any health consequences from it, and I didn't really give it up for health reasons because I wasn't really worried about my health for any particular reason related to that. But I wanted to get away from this addiction to nicotine. You spend money on it, and it's just something that you have to think about. You have to charge your batteries and make sure you got juice and make sure your vape's working and it's clean, and you got to remember to bring it with you, and you feel tied to it. And if you've been there, I'm sure you understand. And the feeling of panic if you misplace your vape, or, you know, you forgot your smokes or your chew or whatever you're doing. Nicotine is very physically addictive, and going a few hours without it can seem like torture. So that was honestly a lot harder physically, in terms of a physical addiction and cravings and the desire to go back to relapse, was far worse with nicotine than alcohol. Alcohol, I was in a headspace where I was ready to give it up, and it was tough for a week or two. But after that, it wasn't a problem. I've never really had a craving for alcohol ever since, thankfully. I know that's not the case for everybody, but for me, I can say that the physical addiction wasn't there. I never had a real desire, like, I've just got to have a drink. Maybe a few times in the first week or two, but that was it. And nicotine, at this point, I don't really have a craving for it anymore. But even up to a month ago, I think like 3 months in, I was still feeling strong cravings. I mean, the first week or two are really rough. First month is rough. First 2 months are rough. I mean, the problem and the reason so many people fail to quit it is because the struggle with those cravings goes on for so long, and it is really a difficult thing to kick. So, you know, I totally understand. I mean, I had tried plenty of times, certainly. I had successfully quit for maybe even months before. And this time I feel like I've quit for good. I don't know exactly why. It helps think that I'm not drinking. I'm not doing anything else that would encourage me, alcohol certainly was a big trigger for me. And so it was always really hard to quit vaping and continue drinking. So now that both are out of my life, I feel like both are done. And I just feel like it's different this time. I sure hope so. But at this point, it's been hard enough to give it up. And that is a reason for me to keep going with everything, because, yeah, it was a struggle to quit. And why undo that progress? Because if I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, and I don't, then why undo that progress by falling off the wagon and making it harder to start back again? So that sort of keeps me motivated. But also at some point, again, for myself, I can say I don't really need the motivation. My life is different now. I've changed. And once you've undergone that change, I don't feel like I have to constantly fight this battle. Like, I don't wake up and have to say I'm not going to drink today. I haven't felt that way in a year, really. Past the first couple weeks of quitting drinking, I didn't have any desire to drink. And I made up my mind and I decided. And in fact, I only planned to go for a month at first, but I ended up just liking it and deciding by the end of that month that it's done. You know, I'm not going to drink anymore. I've got a new life. I'm not going to go back down that road. I know where it leads. I wanted to get off that train, and I'm done. And so, you know, I walked away from that. And I understand how difficult this can be and how other people may have a harder time with it. And, you know, every time in the past that I tried to quit drinking, or that I tried to give up nicotine or quit weed, it never worked long term. And I don't know why I feel different about it now. But I never made it as far before. That's for one. And also, there's a difference in mindset. I used to think, with alcohol in particular, I wanted to cut back because it was unhealthy. I didn't necessarily want to give up drinking. And I didn't really look at the positives of it. I just mainly thought, this is something that's bad for me that I've got to stop. So I'm going to stop for my health. But I'm not going to stop forever because I like it and I want to keep drinking one day. And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like I never want to drink again because I understand the positives of it, and I am free from that kind of slavery. And now I look at it in a very different and negative way. I view alcohol as a poison and something that ruins people's lives. And, you know, it attempted to ruin mine. I'm not going to change my perspective on that. I know there's freedom on the other side. There's a better life on the other side. Why would I want to give that up to go back to something worse? I wouldn't. It doesn't mean that I won't ever have any struggle or any temptation if, I don't know, something catastrophic happened in my life. But I also know that alcohol is just not a solution, that no matter how much pain you might be going through in your life, it's a very poor and temporary painkiller that ultimately just makes the pain worse. So why would I turn to that in a time of need? In order for me to turn to alcohol in a moment of weakness, I would have to believe that it has something to offer me. And I don't believe that it has anything to offer me. And that's not a forced belief. It's a very firm conviction. I know for a fact that alcohol has nothing to offer me. And so it's not a solution. It's not an option. If things get bad, it's not an option there. It's not going to help anything in my life, no matter whatever happens. It's never going to be something on the table because it would never help me. Some people might struggle with boredom or fear boredom when they go sober, and it can certainly make you realize how much of your life revolved around this drug, this activity, and its related activities. Because yeah, you may want to distance yourself from a certain group of friends or a certain habits, certain lifestyle, if you want to make a change. For me, I didn't have to change my life really, because nobody was forcing me to drink. And it wasn't really intrinsic to my social life. That's been something that's really good to find out. I didn't want to be in a position where I couldn't hang out with my friends or I couldn't go to a party where people are drinking because it would trigger me. And I have no temptation to drink. I've gone to plenty of parties where people are drinking quite copiously, and I don't have any desire to join in with them because I know that I'm not missing out on anything. Maybe drinking water is boring. Maybe Diet Coke ain't the same thing, but whatever. I'll make do. Who cares? You know, if a party is interesting because I'm having fun, we're playing music together, or there's interesting people there, I get to spend time with my friends, we have good conversations, then I don't need to be drinking. It's not boring because I'm not drinking, and it wouldn't be more fun if I was drinking. I have plenty of fun at parties if it's a good party, and I enjoy the people there. It does make you aware that you're not going to want to spend time with people that you find boring and unpleasant just because you can drink around them. If you hang out with people only to drink with them or to get high with them, you might end up cutting those people out of your life, not because you have to or because you're being mean, but because it's no longer serving you at all. And maybe it's not serving them, or maybe you can be an example to them and you can encourage them. And hopefully maybe you can leave a positive impact on your friends. I care about my friends. I associate with people that I like. I like spending time with them. I don't like it any less because I'm sober. In fact, it's often more fun because as the night goes on and people get more drunk and sillier, either the conversations wither away or you get to watch them make a fool of themselves and be glad that you're not doing that too. Maybe feel some pity for them. I do sometimes. And I often feel like, well, I'm glad that's not me. And I'm glad I can go home tonight. I can drive. I'm not sick. I'm not going to feel bad tomorrow. And at the end of the night, I'm not exhausted from putting my body through that, from consuming all that alcohol. I can go to a party and come home and have a good time and just enjoy people's company And if you don't enjoy their company, then don't hang out with them. So boredom, that's something that strikes me. I've gotten a few comments about that they're bored because they're not drinking. And so my advice for that is to, embrace that boredom and find a solution. Obviously, the solution's not alcohol. So what else can you do? Do you have any hobbies? Maybe start a new hobby. For me, I'm an avid musician. I write music, I record, I make YouTube videos, I have a job. I'm very busy. I don't really have enough time in the day to keep up with what I already do. Alcohol just makes that much harder because I would have less time because I'd be wasting it drinking and recovering from drinking. So I'm already very busy as is. And if I am ever bored, there's an endless supply of things to do. But for people who do feel like their life is kind of empty without alcohol, find a hobby, start some, be creative. That's what I do. Now, maybe that's not for everyone. Not everyone's creative. Okay. But there's hobbies for everyone, and at least do something safer. Even if you were just going to play video games, at least you're not poisoning yourself. Okay. Maybe that's not ideal. Maybe it's not the best way to spend many hours a day, but it's better. Okay. It's a start. And then you can, maybe find something more productive to do if you want. Maybe you don't have to be productive, but I think you should find something that gives your life meaning and a hobby that is meaningful to you, which for me is something creative, whether it's art or music or film, making things. Just make something to leave your mark on the world with something that you've made. I think that's a good way to do it. Human beings count. Have kids. I've also gotten a number of people who have been sober a long time who say to get a support group, to go to AA, or that, I don't know what's coming, that I'm just getting started. And I hope they're wrong in that. Again, I don't feel any desire. I have no reason to drink. It's just really not an option. I feel like there's no purpose to that. So for me, and again, after a year, I feel no temptation. I feel no desire to drink. I don't know that, alcoholism is something that you get cured from. I don't think it necessarily is, but I also think there's an element of mindset. And if you feel like you're denying yourself something and there's still a part of you holding on to alcohol or any kind of drug as something that has some benefit into your life, maybe it is harder to give up something that you think brought you joy or helped your life or helped you to relax. Know that that's a lie, and know it really firmly, and you won't feel like you're missing out on anything. Besides getting drunk, I enjoyed the flavor of craft beer, of spirits, cocktails, wine, even though I didn't get super into wine. But I've tasted alcohol on a few occasions in the last year, not because I wanted to drink or I was tempted by the alcohol. In situations where it was offered, I guess there was always an amount of peer pressure. I guess I was partly curious to see if, just a taste would sort of trigger some kind of addiction response. Like it would light up my brain and I would suddenly, really want to drink. And no, I didn't find that, though. I think if I was to continue to drink, then that would happen. Yeah. Dr. Huberman really explains it well, but it's a matter of how alcohol affects your brain. I think that the way that my brain responds to alcohol is one of addiction, essentially, one of a stimulant response that encourages more and more drinking. So if I was to have a drink or two, would I want to have a third? Sure. Yeah. I mean, hopefully at this point, if I was in that situation, which I wouldn't be, I would know better to stop. But I don't think that that's something that I could overcome. And so I have to just not drink. But a small taste doesn't trigger me to drink more. I've been curious if alcohol would taste the same or different having gone without it for so long. And it does definitely taste different and does taste bad to me now. It tastes very bitter. And I had sort of, I guess like everyone, developed a taste. You know, it's an acquired taste, right? When a child drinks alcohol, they taste it for what it is, which is bitter and disgusting. It doesn't matter if it's the world's most expensive wine. A kid's not going to like it. It's still going to taste gross to them because they see it for what it is. They taste it for what it is. It is bitter and it doesn't taste good. Even if it's a nice wine, there's maybe some nice elements to it, but that bitter taste of alcohol, that unpleasant poison taste is there. It's there in beer. It's there in liquor. It all tastes gross to me. And so that again is like, well, there's nothing for me there. This stuff doesn't taste good. I'd convince myself that it tasted good, or I'd, burned up enough taste buds that I thought it tasted good, but it really doesn't. There's some good non-alcoholic craft beer out there. Athletic Brewing is good. Go Brewing. I do miss the taste of hops sometimes. It's unfortunately just as expensive, if not more expensive, than real beer, but also it doesn't have that taste of alcohol. Now, at first, it tasted to me like something was missing. But now I've adjusted to where, yeah, it perhaps tastes a little more watery, a little different than a real beer. It doesn't have that unpleasant taste of alcohol now. Whenever I've tasted real beer, rarely, I might add, it has that bitter nastiness to it. And it's not bitterness from the hops. It's a different kind of bitterness from the alcohol itself. Maybe it's not even bitterness is the right word. It is this taste of alcohol that I no longer enjoy. And so, in a way, near beer is better. And there's good craft non-alcoholic beer now. I'm not talking about O'Doul's or anything like that. Stay away from that stuff. It's just gross. It doesn't taste good. I like seltzer water. That's perfectly healthy. Drink LaCroix. And if you don't like that, I wouldn't advocate that you start a soda habit, and I haven't. But, you're probably better off drinking the odd soda, certainly better off drinking the occasional soda than you are alcohol. But maybe not 3 or 4 cans of Coke a day. That's probably not good for you. We know it's not good for you. Occasionally, it's not going to hurt. And seltzer water is great. I like carbonated drinks. Not everyone does. You can find something else that's tasty. I like water. I really like water. It's the least interesting thing to say, but it's true. Water's great. We need it to survive. I don't drink water because it's fun. I drink it because I need to, but I drink a lot of water. I like water. It's a good thing. I don't want to drink flavored stuff all day. I like having actual water. I feel like other things, anything else is supplementary to that. It might be a treat, but water is what you should drink. Water, that's the important thing. And I don't feel bad about nerding out about coffee and enjoying my espresso, all my hipster coffee drinks that make me a pretentious, insufferable snob. I like coffee, and it's really interesting. That's kind of been a good replacement for me for alcohol in terms of something to nerd out about the delicate bouquet of floral notes and earthy mushroom flavors. You don't need wine for that. You can do it with coffee. You can do it with tea. There's plenty of things to get obsessed with and spend too much money chasing something that ultimately doesn't exist, which is fulfillment and happiness in life. I'm just kidding. There's plenty of things to find fulfillment in, but it's not going to come in the form of something that you experience with your taste buds. It's been a good year. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well if you're just starting your journey into sobriety. I sincerely wish you the best and know that it does get easier. I think I want to impress upon you a message of hope and freedom, that when you break free of these addictions, it does suck at first and it will be a real test. And for some people, it can be a really, really steep hill to climb. But if you do, and you can, there is freedom to be had. There's a better life on the other side. And you don't have to feel like an addict without their drug forever, because eventually you'll be a new person. Your brain will fix itself and you won't feel that constant struggle and craving for your fix. You don't have to live that way. You can change your brain by simply giving it time, giving it a break. And maybe there's some extreme cases, okay? I'm talking generally, but for most people, give your brain and your body a chance to rest and reset and adapt and repair itself and try to live a healthy life and try to be mentally healthy and sleep well, eat well. You will be able to find yourself in a much better position on the other side. Absolutely. So that's my message. And there's also a great joy to be found in freedom from addiction, in not having that burden in your life, and not having to worry about when you're going to have your next drink, when you're going to get high or hit the vape or shoot up, God forbid. You can think about other things. You can live for other things. You can fill your time and your mind with better things than searching for a high. So there's absolutely tremendous benefit to come from just not being a slave to some stupid drug the rest of your life. So I wish you the best. Godspeed, and thanks for watching.